Daddy Tax Happy Hour. Dig.
Yo, only 8 minutes behind. Ugh, not doing well. Hey, beautiful Thursday to all of you. It's me, Brian Brushwood. I would say I'm alone in studio, but anybody watching live knows that we're joined by Meryl Barr for a very super
First time
special.
in 2 months.
Boy, it's been a minute, hasn't it?
It's been 2 months. What happened was after my last appearance, I had texted Brian to say I'm gonna take some time away from happy hour.
Nobody cares. All right, let's get to the news. You're here because there's news.
There's major news.
Right?
So if for those that follow Court Killers and my last Court Killers appearance 2 weeks ago, we had covered it. I came on the Monday after the big news broke that Warner Brothers
the news is that the entire year's worth of movies are going to be day and date.
Yeah. You're gonna. All right. Yeah. We're doing. All right. We're gonna go right. Yeah. Warner Brothers is taking their entire 2021 slate to do what they did with Wonder Woman, where it's going to be 1 month on HBO Max, well, with theatrical at the same time, and then it will come off HBO Max to remain theatrical for the rest of the window. But that's day and date, baby. We're officially at a whole studio doing day and date.
Now, here's the big question that we can either go straight to, or we could talk about the mechanics of it first. But JDS3K in the chat says ATT killed theaters, and
no,
I don't think that's the case. I think theaters. No. I think weirdly, this is a very savvy move that admits that theaters are going to do whatever theaters were going to do either way, and that yes, I believe 2 years ago totally would have cannibalized big theatrical release, all that stuff, that system they had. But right now, theatrical releases are so broken that AT&T had nothing to lose, that HBO Max was, number one, still a terrible brand, terrible way to roll that out, all those things. But if you're going to build that into something, this might be the most brilliant, daring move I could imagine them making.
So this opens up a few possibilities for theaters. Option one is studios start buying theater chains, which is the thing that everyone kind of got worried about, including me with the end of the Paramount decrees.
Well, also including the U.S. government 100 years ago with the Paramount decision.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So they lifted that decision, and so now that decision is no longer active. So you can buy a theater chain as a studio now. So the question is, so it could be either theater chains start getting bought up, or studios start partnering with chains. So it'll be, hey, you want to see this? You want to see Dune in a theater? You can only see it at an AMC. They'll start making exclusive partnerships with theater chains, or they'll start buying the chains and make the chains part of the overall revenue stream of the company.
I would be really surprised if they go for the exclusivity angle. I feel like what they're more likely to do is offer enhanced experiences at their,
I think that too,
at their family stuff. I feel like last time people tried to play the monopolistic exclusivity card, it didn't work out so well because the U.S. government got involved.
Right, they can't. They would have to redo the entire decision they just evaporated, in order to reinforce it. That's where it could work.
Correct. But everybody has a memory, and they remember, oh, wait, let's do the same thing. It's the equivalent of, you can either punish bad actors or reward good actors. What they'll do is they'll just figure out how to reward people for watching it at the quote unquote better, quote unquote right movie theaters.
It will become, theaters will become a more special experience. It will not be, the idea of a discount Tuesday, or every movie before, the idea of a matinee pricing, I think all that's going to go away, and it's going to start. You'll see less people in any given auditorium. It'll be maybe more comfy seats, tables, more of a restaurant style experience. It's the way it exists now. Short of they'll maintain a certain, if you want an auditorium, you gotta go see it in IMAX. You want a regular screen, maybe we'll throw in some tables, we'll have waiters, and we'll spread things out, make it maybe more of a loungy vibe, couches. You can buy love seats. It will definitely be more of a date night experience, more of a family outing experience, where you're going to pay a premium, but you're going to get a premium experience. Whereas right now, at least pre-COVID, it was, you were paying a premium to really get the like the bottom barrel experience of movies.
I don't know about bottom barrel, but let me throw this out there. I would say in the before four times of 2 years ago, um, there was a known cost to day and date releases, and
Hmm.
whether or not there was never truly a natural experiment to find out what that cost was, but it was big enough that only uh, sorry for saying the word garbage movies, but like what was it, Tower Heist with Eddie Murphy, like very low stakes movies
Yeah.
were the only day and date releases that people would try, or they would do day and date
And they charge
services.
$60
Correct,
a
right.
pop.
That's the other thing is they would charge insane amounts, right? And then they were able to point and say, "See, nobody wants this." But then, given the earthquake that's happened, um, I mean, they've got nothing to lose. In the before times, I think that it wouldn't have been unreasonable to say they would take a 40%, 50%, maybe even 60% hit for a day and date release compared to a theatrical only release. But in the now times, I mean, what? Maybe they're losing 20% of $20. I mean,
Well, only, and mind you, this is only right now. It's only domestic. So only this is on the
sorry.
HBO Max.
Which, by the way, that's a totally legitimate story. But I've spent so many years doing the movie draft that I've trained myself to only think in terms of domestic and to ignore international.
Right.
So that is a good point.
A very important part of the story is right now that HBO Max push is only for the domestic US release. Everywhere else is still going to be theatrical because HBO Max isn't everywhere yet. You know, it's not like even Disney Plus is in more places, but even Disney is not global yet. They're working on it. Every year they get a little closer. That's going to be true. Netflix didn't start with being in every territory. They started with just being in the US. So that's an important distinction is they're not losing the global box office. And the reality is for most of these movies, the global box office outpaces the domestic US box office. So if you're losing the domestic box office, like what are you actually losing? Most of the people are on HBO Max, which is the other part of it. 10 years ago, it was a la carte. You paid $60 a pop for any of those potential releases that no one really wanted
And
anyway, like
every
Tower
single one
Heist.
was a big fat dramatic I don't know, bet you had to make. Like you had to reach deep enough into your pockets that you're like, "Oh my god, is Tower Heist going to be worth it?" Yeah, I don't know.
Right, because the argument was, well, it's like, well, if a movie ticket costs $20 and you have a family four, I'm like, what family four is seeing Tower Heist?
Right.
They're not. There was no four quadrant release being put out in day and date. Now, the other side of this is these are the monthly streamers that are being utilized for these day and date releases. It's something already there. It's not an addition to. It's already in the budget.
Here's the other thing. Before this decision and before some of the things that I've seen since the release of HBO Max, as a brand, as an over the top streaming brand, I would have placed HBO Max sixth, maybe seventh place. Um,
Mm.
what? Netflix,
I don't.
Amazon, Hulu.
No, I just don't. I just don't agree with that. I know. I know you're right on the number. I just necessarily I don't know if I agree with the assessment of placing it six.
Uh,
Because
okay.
in terms of bang for the buck, I would put HBO Max over Apple TV Plus,
No.
and I would put it. Oh yeah.
No, or sorry. In terms of brand,
Oh,
before
brand
everything,
recognition.
what like right, pre-release, before anybody knew how good the
Gotcha.
content was.
Gotcha.
Like
Gotcha.
now we're getting to a place where it's like and keep in mind this comes from a place of somebody who is getting HBO Max free. And is now discovering stuff like Raised by Wolves and the Pandemic Special and all that stuff. But before that, just based on the brand alone, very very poor placement, and this kind of move is enough to short circuit not only the terrible branding, the terrible naming. Like for example, pre-branding, absent any of the content, which would you have put higher, Peacock or HBO Max?
Peacock.
Correct, right? So again, so now we're at Peacock, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu.
I got you. I see. Yeah, I see where you're going.
Right,
I still stand by my prediction, which is going to be like they sunsetted HBO now,
right.
and they're sunsetting HBO Go, or just did.
Which, by the
I
way,
th-
I'm still paying for HBO now.
I
I
my
cannot be bothered to
my
unstop paying for it.
my suspicion is that in the years to come, within 2 years, definitely within 5, probably within HBO Max will just become HBO. Everything will just be merged into it's HBO, and they'll make a big deal. It's like it's HBO.
Right.
That's gonna be a big deal.
Okay, so let me see if I can get everybody in here. Justin is on the line. Let me call you, Meryl.
Should I get out of our current call?
Well, let me see what happens when I call you. There. Can you jump over?
I'm not seeing a call from you.
Gerbs, are you on audio? Hey, there you are.
I'm
Okay.
rocking and
Right, let me
rolling.
get
Can you
out
please
of this.
mute
Here,
Skype.
yeah. Oh, that's right. Oh, good call. Boom.
All right.
Busted.
All right, call me. Try calling me again.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll try again. Yo, man, stop me if you've heard this, but wow, bold decision regarding Warner Brothers' entire slate of movies.
Yeah, we just talked about it a lot on TTNS, but without a doubt, this is Warner Media being in a bit of a different situation. They need money. They can't afford to ride things out. They've got movies that are being made now that will be gigantic features theoretically for 2021 and 2022.
Right.
So these things gotta get out, and they have not had the same kind of activation that they've wanted for HBO Max. And now, as of end of this month, they begin their new brand of what is HBO Max, aside from yet another thing I have to subscribe to. Oh, it's the place where gigantic day and date movies come out.
So
okay, pretty good brand.
This is the part of the story where I was about to lead into, and hold on. Oh, look at that. I did it. Oh, fantastic. Oh, nope. What? Nope. Wait. Hold on.
Oh, so
I swear I did it. I swear I did it. Oh, doggone it. I lost it. Oh, nope. Wait. Ha! I did it. Okay. We're all here. So here's my question is, did Warner and HBO Max just like Mr. Bean their way into being a top tier option? Because my whole point was before launch, there was no way that HBO Max was a top tier option. But in this case where you can talk all the studios into acknowledging that there's a sunk cost on everything they're doing right now, and you could talk theaters into shut the hell up. It doesn't matter. The 90-day window is dead and gone. Did HBO Max maybe just become like the top 3 service?
Well, no, it's not that they. I mean, Mr. Beaning might be a good way to describe it, but it's not like they had any kind of negotiation with the theaters. The theaters already are having their one foot on their neck is the coronavirus, and the other foot on their neck is government that is doing public policy for coronavirus. They are both doing a high karate sidekick against the neck of the theater owners. And so the studios are like, well, good luck with all that. We're not going to sit vigil and wait to see when you're okay. So effectively, despite the fact that there's no formal kind of like collective bargaining agreement or anything between the studios, quote unquote, and the exhibitors, quote unquote, it's all kind of a loose framework of stuff. It had been understood that nobody would violate these norms. And now Warner's just the first studio to be like, look, we got a whole nother business to feed. And also it's like Universal's owned by Comcast. Comcast can afford to let things coast. AT&T is not in the same financial position that Comcast is. They need Warner to produce, and that means just writing it off.
Isn't AT&T the top ISP in the States?
They also have a lot of debt because they've merged with
yes, you are correct. They were
they merged with
right.
DirecTV. And I don't know who is echoing now, but somebody is echoing. Meryl,
it's me. Hang on.
Busted.
Fixed.
Busted.
My bad.
Yeah, I suppose I'm saying Mr. Bean because everything about the launch of HBO Max, and again, allow me to divorce the brand from the content. The content turns out
Yeah.
to be quite good. The experience is quite good. The front end is quite good. The streaming is quite good. There's a lot of reasons that on paper things made sense. The branding, I still stand behind. Terrible. At launch, absent the content, HBO Max as a brand, as an idea, as an identity, 6th, 7th place out of over-the-top streaming services. Now, this decision is the exact right, bold move that might place them in the top 3.
I mean, look, it HBO Max found itself being the Cinemax of streaming services,
Which is ironic
right?
because there's no Max. The Max has nothing to do with Cinemax. You don't even get
Well,
Cinemax.
Sure, yeah, but it's like if you cared about premium TV, you got HBO. If you were like rich and you really cared about premium TV, you got HBO and Showtime. If you were just the money bags, the rich family at the end of the block that's like calls the cable company and you're like, fuck it, all of it, all pay-per-view movies too. Then you also got Cinemax, and that's where HBO kind of found itself as a third option behind Netflix and Disney Plus. If you were going to allocate that stuff, I think this is it's a bold move. I also think that it's like I think Mr. Bean's a good way to put it because I don't know if they really had much of a choice. Like,
Right.
what are they going to do? Just sit there and wait for the theaters?
It took a global pandemic for them to luck into the right position.
To quote Jury, it's the pandemic, stupid. Like that.
Yeah.
This is no pandemic. This does not happen. This probably would have never happened. It wasn't VHS that destroyed theaters. It wasn't DVD that destroyed theaters. It wasn't laser disc. It wasn't streaming. It was the pandemic. But even then, I don't think theaters are destroyed. Theaters will change. They are now going to be forced into a changing mindset, an evolutionary mindset. I don't think they're going to go away. You're not going to see all the AMC shutter. They're going to become, there's going to be a different kind of programming vibe within them.
Also, JDS3K in the chat has a very important distinction. Is this Mr. Bean or Baby's Day Out? I would say Baby's Day Out is just somebody who blindly walks forward, does no wrong, and somehow ends up okay. Mr. Bean actively does everything as wrong, dumb, and stupid as possible, and yet still ends up as the winner. So I would say more Mr. Bean than Baby's Day Out.
Yeah, I do think we're going to see maybe a chain shutter or be sold or merge. I think that we are going to see a shakeup for this. But if Warner Media is indeed the lead dog on this, and we see the other studios follow suit in terms of just totally eliminating and not respecting the 90-day window, and also unlike Wonder Woman, all these other movies, they're not cutting the theaters in on any of the digital revenue, which was part of the deal that Universal came up with.
Right. Well, it felt to me, as we discussed it on Cord Killers, that it was essentially a hush money fee. Like, hey man, I'm going to write a check and keep adding zeros. You tell me when you're less angry. And then.
Sure. But now what the studios are going to say is like, hey, we're essentially declaring these sets of norms as null and void. So when you guys are able to play at the level that you're really able to play at again, come back to us. But now the studios are going to renegotiate what used to be. It used to be like even at the beginning of this year, it's like, oh, you want to eliminate the 90-day window? Well, let's figure out a solution based on decades of pre-settled norms. Now, by the time that they come back to the table, it'll be like tabula rasa. Like, if any, or it'll be like the studio saying, well, we got to protect our subscriber revenue that we now have come to count on based on having these day and date things on HBO Max. The movie theaters are going to have fucking negative leverage, just like absolutely no leverage on these anymore, aside from the fact that it is still a moneymaker on certain movies. But beyond that, I mean, who even knows what it looks like?
my suspicion for theaters is, look, there's a reality that in Hollywood there is a social cachet of having your movie, particularly a big movie, in theaters. It's just the reality of it. I could see the studios going to the theaters and saying, "Give us, we're going to keep day and date, but we'll give you a higher percentage of the like it used to be. The week one was when the theaters made the least amount of money and the
Yeah.
studio made the most. They'll change that equation. And it'll start being, okay, on week one, that theatrical, we'll make it 50-50. Like we'll give you a much higher chunk of the opening day gross. That way you get a big chunk of the next Avengers Endgame, and it probably ends up evening out with that change. Because the reality is, people are still going to go to a theater to see Endgame. They're going to go to theater to see Wonder Woman, the third one, the next Justice League. Here's a question: do we want to go to theater to see Dune? I think a bunch of hardcore sci-fi nerds do. Do I think the general public cares about seeing Dune in the theater? I don't know.
Uh,
But I think they'll definitely watch it on HBO Max.
so we've talked a bit about how theaters are renting out their theaters for private showings and all that stuff. The sooner theaters figure out that they're not in the movie business, that what they are awesome venues with comfortable seats and very large screens and a situation that focuses everybody's energy in the right direction. For example, on Cord Killers, we were talking about like, I could totally see every Sunday afternoon or whatever the big game day is, renting out, instead of theaters 1 through 8 all being showings either 3D or not 3D of the latest Star Wars. Instead, it's like, hey, we're showing all the games. However, this theater is dedicated to San Francisco Giants fans. This theater is dedicated to New York Jets fans, and so on. And then now you're getting that. And again, this is all contingent on a post-COVID world, but that's what it's going to take to lure movies back, to remind them that there's a value to the party atmosphere, the incredible being in an audience experience. I mean, Justin, you've talked several times about how powerful and surreal it was to be in an audience in Oakland for Black Panther, and how the experience of being there really mattered. And I think that in the short term, sports, concerts, versions of Spike and Mike's Twisted Festival of, animation, things that involves MCs or, maybe even live bands or whatever. Like right now, there's one time the theater across the street is 100% fully booked, always full. And it's on Sunday mornings because some church has figured out, oh, wait, we could still do church. We'll just spread them over 8 theaters and it'll be all live streamed. And it'll be at the local movie theater. Like once they realize that they can apply that to literally everything else that we can't do all in one place at the same time, then they'll regain their power. And I think they'll come back to the negotiation table, not totally powerless, hat in hand, but instead with like, hey, we offer a unique credibility to the experience.
We'll see. I mean, I think that certainly is a place that some theaters will go. But again, it's like, I do not feel comfortable saying that we even know who's going to own these chains. Maybe they are people that are very forward thinking, but like, we don't know. To be honest, I think that there's a very realistic world where the new set of negotiations between studios and theaters include the fact that at a bargain, a studio buys one of these chains or buys a portion of it, right?
We talked about this before you came on. Yeah. Like
that's part of it, is like they want to protect their own exclusivity at their specific theater.
Well, that's the other thing, is it's that, or it could be studios partnering with chains. So as I was saying before, you want to see new Wonder Woman in a theater, you're going to AMC. You want to see the new Black Widow, you're going over to Regal. Like and they'll start like making these exclusive partnerships, particularly for the big ones.
I disagree. I think that maybe if you live in a city, it's 6 of one, half dozen another to go to an AMC or a Regal. But if you live outside of a city, then it's like, well, I guess I just won't see that movie. So I feel like the exclusivity bonuses will be only, and this is what we were talking about before you joined us, Justin. The advantage that people will have is like, well, you only get this bonus content if you see it at the right place. Not
I
that
mean,
they would take away the opportunity to see it
That's
at other
possible too.
places.
Like
but
you get
even but
more.
even then, if we're talking about rural movie going, who knows even what state that's in by the time that we get out of this? Because I do think that the people that are really going to get hurt, it ain't the city dwellers like us, where we're like, oh, I want to see a movie in the next 30 minutes. Here are my 5 options within a 20-minute drive where I can go see a movie. Uh, it's going to be the places where they got to drive an hour and a half to go see a movie, even if it's something as big as Avengers Endgame. And who knows if some of those places are even going to exist by the time that we
There
come out
was
of this.
there was a tweet I saw that really put that into perspective for me earlier today, and it was that if you got accustomed to seeing, the people that go to like an ArcLight or a Draft House, or like there you and talk about the premium experience, you weren't having a premium experience, you were having a rich experience. The reality is the theatrical, over the years, the chains have really pushed out a certain level of accessibility with the level of pricing the price gouging and the level, and what you're really getting. Like the rural audience was kind of pushed out anyway, and this will actually, I argue, we're going to see an even bigger increase of people watching movies overall by having these movies placed on HBO Max. I think a lot of those regions will be giving certain movies a chance in the way, like, does Dune play a role in America in theatrical? I don't know. Does Dune play a role in America on HBO Max? I guarantee it.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. T-Scan USA points out also that there's other moves that can come with exclusivity as well. Not quite exclusive, but like early releases where it's like see it 3 days early if you go to a Regal brand theater or an AMC or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're in a new world, and as much as you can say that a lot of these trends were in the offing, it was happening. Like, there's no denying that nobody was expecting us to speed run 5 years worth of a decay in 9 months. And a lot of these, I mean, hell, Disney's about to lay off like 100 executives. There's a huge, apparently, according to the Hollywood Reporter, it's a bloodbath in terms of being laid off, including talent. My favorite radio show that airs through the ESPN radio network, as they just got granted their release because they're just shedding salary. Like right now, like the entire economics of entertainment as we know it are in the process of being reshuffling. And the big thing now is that nobody really knows where it's going. These big companies are literally just harvesting their nuts for the however long this winter goes, so then they can pounce and rebuild on where the sun is shining by the time that it comes back up.
Yeah.
This is a we are going to look back on this day as like this. It's rare that you hit a day where that in the history books we're going to mark it down this day as like this was the day everything changed. This is one of those rare moments where it's like, I guarantee you, let's say the 4th December 3rd 2020, when we're reading the Wikipedia page on theatrical releases in the United States, this will be like a highlighted section of the in the breakdown of like, no, this, and then Warner Brothers announced they were going to put their 2021 slate. And the bigger thing to me is it was Warner Brothers. So now it's starting to make me wonder, okay, who's next, right? And I think maybe this way, Disney's last. When Disney will be last.
Before we go into that part, we should take a moment just to tip the hat and say first mover advantage. Like Warner Brothers captured all the publicity, all the shock and awe, all of the credibility, all of the forward thinking momentum by being the first one to make this big of a leap. And all of a sudden, like you just asked who's going to be next. And my gut reaction was like, who cares? Like that's how big of a move this is, that everybody will remember that it was a Warner Brothers forward thinking decision to just call a mulligan on the last 2 years of production and say, we're putting all of that into our streaming service.
Yeah. And I think Disney's last. Disney's got enough power and juggernaut momentum behind it.
You could make the case that Disney was first with the Pixar stuff and so on.
Well, if you want to make that claim, I mean,
no,
Universal.
Disney right now is Marvel. when is Disney going to pull the trigger and put Black Widow on Disney
Okay,
Plus?
fair enough.
Right. Exactly. And I think the reality is that like right now they have the Mandalorian, they've got WandaVision coming out. So they have these blockbuster-esque TV things already in the pipeline for Disney Plus. So it's not as big of a concern for them, whereas HBO Max had none of that. So I think next is Universal. I think Universal goes, all right, let's flood Peacock. Fast and Furious 9, go into Peacock.
Oof.
Bond, I don't know. Like Bond's a big one. I thought, see, because I saw teases from a few of my friends being like, the world's about to change in 30 minutes. I really thought it was going to be James Bond is going to streaming, which has been some of the reports, is that Apple and Netflix were laying down huge amounts of money
Yeah,
to get
last
the new
move
Bond
was
movie.
just that they delayed yet again, right?
Yeah, they
Yep.
delayed it again, and then one Apple and Netflix offered MGM $700 million for the new Bond movie, and they would thus buying out Universal's distribution, which they just got in a bidding war. So I am wondering who's next on this slate. I think it will be Universal because they'll flood Peak. They have a handful of decent tent poles that can go and flood Peacock real easy. And then from there, I think a lot of the other studios will make deals with distributors because some of them don't have their own in-house streaming service. And then last will be Disney. And when Disney decides to funnel it all Disney Plus, that's when you know it's over. That's when you know the game is set and we're officially in the new world. Right now begins the transition.
Yeah. We did it, Hollywood. We solved it for you.
Yeah. I don't know when Disney pulls that trigger. Like, I think that they're going to sit on Black Widow for a little bit. But then again, also, it's like for them, how far back are they want to move their release schedule? You know, like part of this is also part of what Warner is doing is also just a timing thing that it's like,
Yes.
this shit just has to come out. Like the wheels are turning. New movies are being made. Like there's only so long that these things can sit on the shelf because they don't want to put out a movie like boom, 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 one after another and cheapen the like grandiosity of their releases. Like they deserve, they are built to operate in space. So for them, I think for all these theaters and even for Disney, for Black Widow, and Black Widow is a very tempting one because it's like, look, not exactly the biggest name character.
Ooh, would
like
love
if you were ever
to
gonna
correct you on that. This week, our story on Cord Killers was a survey of 350,000 people asked a variety of questions. Their analysis on the top 20 brands. Now, how you define, franchises is what they said. It really was brands because like, there was one video game one that was Super Mario, but it's like number 1 was The Mandalorian, number 2 was The Avengers, number 3, I've already forgotten. But number 10 really got my attention because it was Black Widow. Black Widow, a character that's never had her own thing yet,
But
is one of the
also on
top
that
20
list-
franchises in all of everything.
But also on that list was Ozark. So I have a lot of qualms with that list.
Okay.
Like,
Well, hold on. Keep in mind, like, what I assume, this is me projecting, I don't know for sure. I assumed that the quiz was basically, here are 700 brands. They're going to be randomized. Because yes, also like Spider-Man was both number 9 with Into the Spider-Verse and number 17 for Spider-Man full stop. So I assume there's all kinds of A/B testing that happens in that. But Ozark, if there's a slider bar for iconic, bold, daring, or whatever, Ozark is the kind of movie that you're going to, or television show that you're going to slide very hard to the right, as well as the sticky brand. And like we talked about on Cord Killers, that doesn't mean that Ozark will become a movie or a musical, but it might become a series of, books or reimagine something or others.
maybe. I guess I wonder where Disney wants to pull that trigger, and I don't have the answer. Like I
no, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, that's it. Yep.
All right. The other thing is, especially with Black Widow, if you remember the original planning, Black Widow was supposed to be the first thing coming after the coda of Spider-Man Far From Home, like which was the denouement of
Right.
phase 3.
Yeah.
So it was like they were going to take basically a year off, not put out a fall release, not put out a February release, and Black Widow was going to launch us into phase 4, and all of that got messed up. So which to the point where now the first thing we're seeing of Marvel in phase 4 is WandaVision. That was
Yeah.
definitely not the plan. So what Black Widow even lost like the one thing that was really going to hold it up
Well,
beyond it being about the character
I
was our return to the MCU after Endgame.
I don't want to bag on that particular decision because in a world of chaos, deciding to lead with a series that is sort of adjacent to the world we knew and chaotic in and of itself, probably a smart idea, or at least a safe play in a world where you have to put something on the calendar somewhere.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm not disagreeing with that point. More, what I'm saying is what Black Widow's thing was, what Black Widow's big advantage was, has now been lost because WandaVision beats it to the punch.
Which, by the
So
way, changes the whole future of things because the longer we get away from that whole phase 3 of the MCU that we loved, the less we're nostalgic and hungry to go back to it. And then, maybe we like the idea of splintering out to crazy other lands.
It's another question for them is like, hey, look, there's a difference between like it is a bold but super understandable decision after you just like gang fuck our psyche with Marvel superheroes in Endgame that you're like, give them a rest. Give them a rest. We don't need to immediately pop back in with Ant-Man 3 or whatever. Like let's give them a rest. Well, it's going to be possibly a 2-year rest now. Okay, well then have we moved away from give it a rest and to, oh, you want to know who my favorite superhero is now? Wonder Woman, who we all watched on Christmas together. Oh, you want to know what was really awesome and fun? Suicide Squad. Like, are all those movies going to come out before Marvel comes back? And by the time that they do, are they something that they've never been behind the 8 ball for big ticket, family friendly entertainment? Like they have not been that from the second that they released Iron Man. And at this point, if you're looking at that news and you're like, fuck, all these superhero movies, and God knows what social coup is going to come up with Zack Snyder's 19-part redo on Justice League. Like, who knows?
I'm with you. I think you're right. I think that having the break was good, but we're now reaching a point of the when does a break become a sleep? When does a
Well,
break become it?
this sort of ties into Justin and I both read The Big Picture recently, where it was talking about Hollywood's addiction to the predictability of any kind of sequel franchise. On the one hand, too bad, so sad, Hollywood. If the longer we sit in this cocoon, the less addicted to your predictability of sequels we become. But also, man, oh man, consumers of moving picture shows, am I excited for all of us for the creative, like daring, low budget, crazy crap everyone's going to have to try over the next 5 years.
That's the other part of this. Is I have been a fervent believer for a long time that the egotistical jerking off over the theatrical experience has really ruined a lot of creativity in Hollywood, and it's on the creator side too. Like there's so many creators who are like, I don't want to make a movie unless I could see it 30 feet high, and I'm like, okay, but then no one will see your movie, and then you just wasted an opportunity. Like you.
Yeah, but that's not necessary. Yes, that exists certainly culturally in Hollywood. But partly it's because that's how the studios make money. Like that's if what you do is sell a widget, and even though that widget is kind of getting more complicated and getting more expensive and has different attitudes toward it, like they have to continue doing it. That's what their business model is. That's how they turn the wheel each and every year is theater grosses. At one time it was maybe DVDs, and then that kind of went away, and everything's been kind of ancillary to how much money can you make at the theaters. The question now is, and I think for Warner is like, all right, in 2020, when between the coronavirus and public policy, theaters are not going to be in existence either by your customer's decision or by the government's decision. Do you want to be a studio or do you want to be Netflix? And in 2020, right now, it's a lot easier. I mean, it's a necessary decision for them to say, fuck it. We're supercharging a Netflix. Like we can't just sit here and wait and push and push and push and push and push on all these movies forever. We gotta just rock and roll. If even just so they know what they do tomorrow in terms of planning out movies 3 years from now.
Yeah. Everybody, they will all, Warner Bros. Will now make those dates. So now we as the consumer also can start getting excited for trailers again, because we're going to see a trailer for the Suicide Squad on the Super Bowl, I'm sure, and go, they're saying it's going to be on that day, and I know it's going to be on that day, and I can't wait. They're going to they're going to, that's the other thing is, we've got the Super Bowl coming up. The biggest ad spend day of movies of the year is only 3 months out, 2 months out. And that's going to be a huge deal regarding getting people excited and getting people excited for a date. If you can't lock the date, that's a problem. There's going to be a new Bond trailer on that Super Bowl this year. And I'm going to watch that going, are you actually going to make the April date? I don't know, guys. I don't know. But I'm going to see keep coming back to Dune. I'm going to see a Dune trailer and go, okay, I know that date's coming. All right. I got this time to read.
I think we're going to get certainty. We're going to get certainty. Like there's going to be, even if it's just biting the bullet and releasing it on VOD, like at a certain point, these losses have piled up. The loss of being in stasis have piled up so high that this fucking product's got to move. Like they just gotta go at some point. And so like by the time that the Super Bowl rolls around in February, I think all these decisions are going to be made, because you're not spending $500,000 on a Super Bowl ad if you don't know when the product's going to be out, unless it's like a thing, a very audacious, like mind share thing that you want to just put in people's memories for a year or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, can we talk about, speaking of advertising, a super important ad? How do we feel about Carl Sagan's words being used to sell a car? And how
I don't know
much less angry...
Carl Sagan.
How much less angry do we get when we find out that it's a Jeep?
I mean, I assume his family's getting paid off it, right? I assume his family signs off on it.
I don't know. I actually know none of the details about the controversy, but apparently there's I guess it was announced previously and I missed it, but there's going to be a gas or plug-in electric Jeep Wrangler. And then, like normally I'm very, very happy with my inexpensive used 2012 two-door Jeep Wrangler. Yeah. But for the first time, maybe in the last 10 years, I had a brief eyebrow raise at well, I don't know, an electric Wrangler would be pretty fun.
So this whole Carl Sagan thing was just a way to segue into you wanting to buy an electric Jeep Wrangler? Is this sponsored content?
No.
You have to let us know if it's sponsored content.
This is a fork in the road. We can either talk about whether or not we're comfortable with Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot story being commercialized, or we could talk about Brian's confusion, excitement.
The first part I have little interest in, only because I've slowly realized that now when I'd forever rolled my eyes when another Led Zeppelin song was played and they were selling a car for old people, and I was like, these fucking old people, they love Led Zeppelin so much. Look at them, Lemmings. And then I heard Hey Ya, and I turned around, I'm like, oh, Hey Ya, and it's selling a fucking Toyota. And I was like, fuck me, I'm everything I hate.
The old one now.
You heard the story. I'm sure it's totally apocryphal and very likely not true, but the story that I heard was that Taika Waititi and team came into the suits to play for Thor Ragnarok, the Immigrant Song, and they're all like, this is going to be a very expensive song, but just listen to it. And then they listened to it, and then the suits were all like, that is a very good song, and we understand that you really want it, and we understand it's very expensive. Why is it so expensive? And they had to explain, well, because it's Led Zeppelin. And they're like, oh, so that's what Led Zeppelin sounds like. Like nobody in the meeting was familiar with Immigrant Song.
Yeah, I think it's whatever. Yeah, they use things as long as they paid the people that did the thing. Fine, who cares? Whatever. I mostly care about the artist in that case. But you buying a Jeep is probably something that we'll talk far more about going forward. So let's head on there.
Well, I don't think I will, but I think I will actively engage in the fantasy. I don't fantasize about cars in general, right? Because
Sure.
in general, I understand that they are one of the number one causes of people to go into debt, and they, it's hard to do the math of what the total cost is versus the per month of your loan and all that stuff. So in general, at some point 20 years ago, I just decided, here's what I do: I buy used crap and I pay cash, and that's what I've always done
Yeah.
since. And it's served pretty well. And especially after 2020, I'm not in any position to go spending silly cash. But
Sure.
for the first time, I was like, I did indulge in kind of a brief, fantasy of like, because the range on the electric is 25 miles, which
Yeah.
is pretty much to and from HQ once a day, maybe an errand or two. And then, but also in my great list of things I enjoy, keeping things charged and plugged in, maybe at slightly below suffering corporal punishment.
I mean, even on the property, if you just had a thing where wherever you park, you that's just part of parking.
I mean, maybe, but also, and we've talked about this. Like, I feel super, super guilty in a world where I'm responsible for so many people's well-being. Like anything that ostentatious or expensive really makes me uncomfortable.
Knowing you,
Yeah.
Brian, having now known you for about 2 years now, I can say I don't know how much you would love having to park the Jeep, get out of the Jeep at HQ, then have to plug in the Jeep at HQ, having now stepped out of the Jeep at HQ. I feel like once you get to HQ, you'll want to enter HQ.
That is the ostentatious part where I would have to become like whatever the circumstances would have to be such that every time I got out of the car, grabbed a charger, plugged it in, was secretly a victory lap for me.
Right.
And I don't know what the reality of my total situation would have to be to make me feel good about that.
The only thing I could think for you is that you're in a situation where you're about to hit a phase where you're gonna need cars to distribute, right? With the
Okay,
kids
all right,
hitting
all right.
car
This
age,
is
right?
this dangerous line of questioning is exactly what was in my mind. I'm so glad you brought it up. Yeah, so it turns out some other family members are going to start needing cars, and we're just going to need more cars to go around. And I mean, if we're going to get a car, maybe we save the earth. I saw this Carl Sagan pale blue dot thing that says I can save the earth.
I mean, that's the only thing I could think of is that you're at a point where you might have to relinquish your current Jeep to.
I mean, it just seems
somebody
like
else.
the responsible thing is to, I mean, what am I going to buy an even cheaper used car and entrust my 16-year-old's life to it? Oh, that would be irresponsible. It seems like we should just get new cars. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Like I think that you're in a very interesting situation. Although I guess also it's like you probably have another like year of just figuring out where the business is in our new world before I think you really feel comfortable pulling triggers on that.
That's a legit thing. When it comes to like even looking at the numbers for the holiday sales, like I know we're moving a lot of product, but I also know that we discounted it a lot. And also just the big old fat asterisk 2020. Who can read anything into anything is the fact that we, got anywhere close to a normal year an indication that we're well positioned going forward? Or is it a case, because like I hear stories from some of my friends who are touring who are very, very excited because they're like, man, beginning of this year, I thought I was screwed. I couldn't tour anymore. Now I'm making 3 times the amount of money. Virtual shows. I do 4 a night. And I'm just like, so I have no idea whether or not I'm squandering an opportunity in the midst of chaos or well-heeled to survive one.
Well, it's always the factor of like shiny and new, right? So you guys were already at where everyone else got to. So it's kind of like that whole thing where they got newfound money and they were like, "Yay!" But because their overhead was rather low because they didn't have all of this stuff already set up, so they're taking home a ton of money. Like I remember when Titus did his first show out of the warehouse over the summer, he was like, "This is the most amount of money I've ever made on any show ever." And I was like, "That's great." But that is not a trajectory that has continued as the shows have gone on,
Right.
because people are getting more accustomed to them and they're not really a novelty anymore.
Well,
Well, novelty being fuck, I'm still in the house and I'm still
right.
can't go to shows.
So the trick is, and this is back to the increasingly short book that I'm going to write. Eventually, it'll be written over a weekend. Is back to the circle. It's like you have to not just harvest, but sustainably harvest. Like there will be that Titus breaks all records for a live concurrent view, amazing ticketed sale, perfectly polished, chrome-like, this is my touring act thing. But you're right. By virtue of harvesting that moment, it makes it harder. Every time you press whatever the button is, every time you press the button works a little bit less well. And
Yes.
this is the time of year where that's very apparent to me as I try to do my best to make as many people happy for Christmas and gifts and so on. And every time I press the button, it works a little bit less well.
But to your question of, I hear about my friend's success, if you're telling me that's where they're at now, they're not going to be there in 3 months. Whereas you already built a sustainable factory. So the fact that, you had a fairly, what sounds like a normal year financially, a little off because of the asterisk. If you had that in 2020, it means that you're primed and you're juiced up. And I think back to what Jerry said, I think it was earlier this week or last week, like when this ends, you've just established the system to run on overdrive when everyone else is going to be running on normal
and
next year.
Lock it in. The power. Do you understand the power of shadows?
Netflix deal incoming.
Okay, so something we're happy about.
I got a stationary bike.
Yeah, we heard. Are you still using it every day?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not one. I've had a few people give me grief when I said I was getting one. They're like, "Well, don't be one of those people who only uses it for 2 weeks." What they don't know is I have muscular dystrophy, so I can't build muscle.
So they're assholes.
Muscle workouts are not a thing for me. The only way I've ever lost weight in my life is by riding on a stationary bike. It's the only workout that works. And when I had a gym membership, I was going 5 days a week, and I hit it hard, and then I killed the gym membership, and then over time gained a bunch of weight back. And so I finally pulled the trigger on this one, and the way I look at the math is, as long as I keep doing it 5 days a week, it pays for itself.
Hang on 1 second for everybody just tuning in. The question was, are you riding it every day?
Every day.
Okay, great. Justin, what about you? What are you happy about?
A lot of projects I can't talk about.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of cool stuff in the pipeline.
All right.
It's all good stuff. I know some of it. It's good stuff, people.
I spent a fair bit of today putting my greasy fingerprints all over my brother's Switch because I want to play Wasteland 2. Ironically, on an exercise bike at the gym. so I spent all that setting up. All right. Well, look, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you to everybody for joining us live for Happy Hour.
See ya.
You guys are great.
Happy Hour. Natty Tax Happy Hour.